So the last few weeks, last week in particular, I spent a lot of time talking about lies. Lies have been a big part of my life for a long time. I've told the story many times about how my whole life was a lie. I was a liar. So what I did, I lied. I lied to everybody. I lied for purpose. I lied for no reason. I just lied. I don't know why. I just did. A lot of it was to hide who I really was and to stop. If I could just lie and make myself be something that I'm not and convince other people that I'm that person that I'm lying about, maybe eventually I'll become that person that I wanted to be so bad. And so I just lied. Now the problem with lying as much as I lied is that you have to keep track of every lie you've ever told. Because, you got to remember, like, okay, well, I lied to Paul about that, and then I told him that about another lie, and then, because, what if I say something that's true, and he's like, wait, what is that? So now the whole house of cards comes crumbling down. So it's literally exhausting lying that much, right? And then, once again, I got saved, and I said magic words, recited a magic prayer. My soul was bound for heaven for all of eternity, and I became a new person, and I got up in front of people, and I would preach sermons, and even though I didn't really believe what I was saying, and it was just another form of lie. It was just another mask. It was another persona that I had put on to lie about who I really was. And, that was devastating. And, then I just look at just how many lies that we've been told. And I don't blame the church. I don't think there's any pastor. Well, some of these pastors I was talking about earlier, maybe. But I don't think pastors are purposely going around lying to people. They're preaching the things that they were taught and they believe to be true, and never really realizing that a lot of it is based on lies. And, when Paul says in Acts 17, well, Luke wrote it, but Paul spoke it, that the divine nature is not like gold, silver, or stone, something that can be formed by the art and thought of man. But that's exactly what we've done. We've taken God's nature and we've formed it into our image. We've made it be what we wanted to be, and then we've sold that to the world, right? Sometimes for profit, sometimes not for profit, depending on if we want to pay taxes or not. But the fact is that not all of it was based on the reality of who God was. And this isn't out of bad intentions. Now, some of my lies are out of bad intentions, but not all of them are. We have an entire half of the Bible, people writing, trying to make sense of their existence. And they're writing about a God because that's the only way existence can make sense if there's a God. I can't make sense of a world without God, right? But they don't really understand who God is, and so they're trying to figure it out. And that's what we're still doing. We're trying to figure out who God is. Who are we? And sometimes we get lost, and sometimes we get lied to because there's this other force, depending on if you want to believe in Satan or not. I tend to. Some people don't. That's fine. I think most of you do, right? But there's this other force that's trying to distract us from the truth. And this force is trying to convince us that things that aren't true are true. If you eat of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, you will be like God. It was a lie, right? He lied, and they believed the lie. And then he said, now that you've eaten of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, you've separated yourself from God. You should be ashamed of yourself. Look at yourself. You're naked. And they went and they clothed themselves because they were ashamed of their nakedness. And hence begins the lie. And it builds on a lie and a lie and a lie and a lie, right? We lie about everything. We lie about, one of the things I think is funny and I'm not picking on women. This is not just picking on women, but it's just the example, right? So you have a woman with straight hair and she goes and gets her hair curled. Then you have a woman with curly hair and she goes and gets her hair straightened. But your hair don't look like that. That's not the way your hair looks. You're lying, right? We wear makeup. That's not the way your face looks. You're lying, right? I'm getting this gray in my beard, and I love it. Like I love the gray, like I'm wanting more of it. Like there's a part of me that wants to dye my beard gray just because I love the gray. Well, correct, but it would be a lie, right? One point in time, I dyed the gray out of my beard. And, no, I didn't dye I didn't like having the red beard, so I dyed it brown. And nobody noticed, and I trimmed it up a couple days later, so got it all out. But it's a lie, but I like the gray, right? Because it makes me look distinguished. It makes me look old, and I like it. I've always wanted to be old. I've always wanted to be an old man. I'm just trying to hurry up and get there. But a lot of people, once their hair starts turning gray, like Jessica, because of myself and the kids, she's starting to get a little more gray hair. She wants to dye it. I said, don't dye it. I love it. I like it. Because it's who she is. It's true. She wants to dye it. Why do you want to lie to people? Right? Now, these are just physical lies, right? And these are physical lies. You want to wear makeup, wear makeup. You want to dye your hair, dye your hair. It doesn't really matter. But are you spiritually lying to people? Are you putting spiritual makeup on? Are you using spiritual hair dye? Are you doing things that are lying to people about who you really are? Not as the physical being with, you want to put rainbow hair in and do whatever, cover yourself in tattoos to hide all your shame and embarrassment. That's fine. Go ahead. I don't care. That's just physical stuff. But what does it mean on the inside? How are we lying to people in the essence of who we are? And are we to be lying? Are we to be trying to cover up? Are we to be trying to mask our true self? Or are we just hiding because we're ashamed of who we think we are? Because we believe the lies that people have told us about who we are. And so today we're going to be in Colossians. Imagine that. I don't know why I just gravitated towards Colossians lately. I didn't intend for Bible study this year to be on Colossians. I haven't intended to be preaching as much out of Colossians as I am, but once again, my intentions and God's intentions aren't always the same, and so I just let him do what he does, and so today we'll be in Colossians, and probably next Sunday, and the Sunday after that, and the Sunday after that, I don't know. But we'll be in Colossians chapter 3, starting at verse 9. Paul writes this, "Do not lie to one another, since you laid aside the old self with its evil practices, and have put on the new self, he who is being renewed to a true knowledge according to the image of the one who created him. A renewal in which there is no distinction between Greek and Jew, circumcised and uncircumcised, barbarian, Scythian, slave and free man, but Christ is all and in all." Those all words again, it can be tricky. We'll come back to that in a minute. Verse 9, very clear. "Do not lie to one another, since you laid aside the old self with its evil practices." Right? So the old self, which some people like, I'll say the false self and the true self. Paul will say the old self and the new self. Same thing, same concept. Right? But we have this false self, this old self, that is constructed out of lies, lying to people about who we are so we can try to fit in. Right? Well, we're trying to lay aside the old self. We're trying to stop lying to people. Stop pretending. Stop trying to be something you're not. Lay that part of you aside and put on the new self. Okay? And putting on the new self, you're being renewed to a true knowledge according to the image of the one who created you. Okay, so you begin to put on the new self. And as you're putting on the new self, you're getting to know who you really are. You're getting to know the true knowledge of who you are. And this true knowledge is being renewed in the image of the very one who created you. So if you don't know who you are, it doesn't matter because he does know who you are. And his version of you is always the correct version of you. His image of you is your true self. Your image of you, if it's not his image of you, is false. And so we're laying aside the false self. We're putting on the true self. And we're being renewed. And why does it say renewed? We're being renewed in the true knowledge of who we are. Because when we were created, we knew who we are. This goes back to the old story about the boy, his mom and dad. I don't know if I told this story last week or the week before. I might have told it both last week and the week before. What's that? Did I? And the boy, his mom and dad have a new baby. No, it wasn't the lion one. No, I did tell that one Friday. I had to sit in on a class in Baldwin Wallace on Friday, and I got to tell that story. I do love that story, but that's not this one. So there's this young boy, his mom and dad have this one isn't a true story. This is a parable. Mom and dad have a new baby, right? And they put the new baby down to bed, and he goes to his mom and dad. He's probably like 5 or 6 years old. He says, Mom, Dad, can I go talk to my new brother? And they say, well, for what? He goes, I just want to talk to him. I just want to talk to him alone. And they said, okay, so he goes in, and they're curious, so they stand at the door because they want to hear, because their curiosity is spiked. And he goes up to his brother, and he goes, hey, who are we? Why are we here? I'm starting to forget already. Right? And so when we talk about the innocence of a child, we talk about the faith of a child, because children know exactly who they are. Children haven't been lied to yet. Children haven't had their innocence taken away from them yet. They still have an understanding of who they are. And the things that they do are manifestations of who they are. Then we come along and say, hey, don't do that. Nobody's going to like you if you do that. Hey, stop being like that. That way's bad. Don't do this. Don't do that. And some of that is necessary, right? My propensity for making people angry probably isn't a God-given talent. That's probably something I've learned to do to get attention because I wanted attention, right? So bad attention is better than no attention, so I'll just make everybody mad so that way everybody will give me attention and be mad at me. Once again, probably not a God-given thing, probably something about me that needed to be corrected. I'll find out one day. But I'm still pretty good at it, though. I mean, I figure I can't make everybody happy, so I'll just make everybody mad because I can do that. So we're being renewed to the true knowledge of who we are, because there was a time when we knew exactly who we are, who we were. And this is a time before we had been lied to. This is a time before we had ever been hurt. This is a time before we had ever had to build up a wall to keep people out. This is a time we ever had to stop putting up a wall to stop ourselves from being protected. We don't trust people in relationships. Once you've been cheated on, you build a wall to stop somebody from ever being able to cheat on you again, or whatever. Right? And so we construct all these walls, we construct all these personas to keep people out and to make people think we're something that we're not, so that they will accept us, so we can fit in. Not ever recognizing that the true knowledge of who we are belongs. Doesn't need to fit in. And then, once we begin to jump into the true knowledge of who we are, now please understand, this is an inward journey. This isn't an outward journey. Right? A lot of what the church does is outward, right? And that's fine. We have to go outward. We've been called to go out, right? And so the work of the Christian who loves God for his own sake, loves God for God's sake, that's the good person who goes out. They go out and they serve the community because God needs them. The world needs us to go out and serve, right? But the person who loves himself for God's sake, that fourth degree of love, this is the inward journey, and this is the narrow way. Very few people find it, but this is the narrow way, and it's an inward journey. And when you begin to journey inward, what is it that you find? God. Because where is He? Christ is all and is in all. So when I journey into my own self, and when I begin to try to discover who I really am, and I take that journey inward, I find Him. Because He's in me. When I'm putting up a wall to block you out, to keep you out, because I need to protect myself from you, I'm not keeping you out. I'm keeping God out, because where is God? He's in you. So if I'm not letting you in, I'm not letting Him in. So all these walls that we build to protect our identity, or what we think is our identity, are actually keeping us away from God. All the time we spend not journeying into our own being is keeping us away from God, because God is in me, God is in you, and I know that because God is in all. Now, this is another one of those times where evangelicals will try to get you to understand that all doesn't mean all. That all here actually means some. That Jesus or Christ is in all who believe. Christ is in all who've accepted Him. So what they're saying is that all means some. Because it doesn't say He is in all who believe. He doesn't say He's in all who've said magic words. He said He is in all. Period. End of sentence. No but. No exclusions. All. Christ is in all. right? And then if you go to 2 Corinthians, there it is. Found it. Sometimes I lose the books. Sometimes I find them faster than other times, but luckily I found it quickly. Chapter 5 of 2 Corinthians, verse 17, he says, "Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creature. The old things passed away, behold, new things have come. Therefore, if anyone is in Christ," what does Colossians tell us about who's in Christ? All. Acts 17. In Christ, we have life, we have movement, and we have existence. So if you're not in Christ, you don't have life. If you're not in Christ, you don't have movement. If you're not in Christ, you don't have existence. So therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creature. Therefore, who is a new creature? All. The difference is not all realize they're a new creature. Not all realize that they are in Christ. Not all realize Christ is in them. Because once again, if I'm in him, he's in me. You can't be in him and he's not in you. You can't have him in you and not be in him. There's only in, right? So if he's in you, you're in him. Just like he's in the Father's in him. There's no separation. So therefore, if I'm in Christ, Christ is in me. Christ is in me because it says Christ is in all. And therefore, if I'm in, or if he's in, then I'm in. Okay? So, now as we begin to understand who this new creature is, the old things begin to pass away, and behold, new things rise up. And what are some of the old things? Right? What does he say here? He says, a renewal in which there is no distinction between Greek and Jew. Now, what does it mean when he says there's no distinction between Greek and Jew? He's saying there's no distinction between nationality. There's no difference between Canadians and Americans. There's no difference in nationality. There's no longer a distinction between people who are nationalistically Greek, nationalistically Jew. There's no longer nationalism. We don't identify ourselves that way anymore. He says there's no longer circumcised or uncircumcised. What does that mean? It means there's no longer people who are religious and people who are not religious. There's no longer people who are included and people who are excluded. Doesn't exist anymore. There's no longer barbarians or Scythians. Now, Scythians are barbarians. Scythians come from the area of Russia, we call it today, right? And they are the most barbaric of the barbarians. So what is he saying? He's saying there's no longer degrees to how bad people are. You're either this bad or you can be this bad. There's a degree to how out you are. There's no distinction between the other. They're all one. And then what he says, there's no difference between slave or free. How do we put that in today's context? There's no longer a distinction between the rich and the poor. Because please understand, poverty is the new slavery. And I'm not saying that the rich people are enslaving the poor people, but poverty is its own form. Anybody ever realize how expensive it is to be poor? Some people may. It's far more expensive to be poor. Like, if I'm rich, say I have millions of dollars in the bank, and I want to go take a loan out for millions of dollars, they're going to give me a really low interest rate. Because chances are, I can pay that back. There's not a whole lot of risk. Now, if I'm poor, and I want to take out a loan, they're going to charge me a huge interest rate. Because there's risk. And they're going to make sure that they're going to get that profit above anything else. So it costs me more money to borrow money if I'm poor than if I'm rich. And that's also one of the reasons why loans, the interest is front-loaded, because the interest is the profit. And they're going to make sure they collect the profit first. Right? And so that's why when you buy a house, you buy a car, your first couple years of payments are just interest. Your principal doesn't go down a whole lot, because they got to make their profit first, because they're the rich and you're the poor. Right? What happens if you're so poor you can't afford a washer and dryer? Well, now you got to pay to do your laundry. It costs more money to do laundry when you're poor. You don't have a car. You have to pay for rides. It's so, like, the circle of poverty is literally enslavement. Right? And what he's saying here is there's no longer a separation between rich and poor. Why are we building these walls? Well, you're poor and I'm rich. There's no longer distinctions. Christ is all. What does that mean? Christ is all. Rich people are Christ. Poor people are Christ. Greeks are Christ. Jews are Christ. Circumcised are Christ. Uncircumcised are Christ. Right? Christ is all. What does that mean? Am I Christ? Am I Christ? Doesn't say, well, it does say Christ in all, but it also says Christ is all. What does that mean? Christ is all. Okay. So we're taking the journey inward, right, Ryan? And what do I find when I journey inward? Well, I find Christ, because he's in me. So I journey in, I find him. Or it, being, whatever you want to call it, it's in there. Right? And as I'm finding Christ in me, I'm being renewed into an image in which he created me to be. So the image in which I was created in is him. I was created in his image. I was created to be him. Now, please understand, I'm not saying this is possible in our lifetime. And just because I'm Christ doesn't mean Christ is me. I'm not saying I'm God, but I carry his image. I carry his likeness. I carry his being, all inherent in my true self. Right? Now, please understand, like sometimes I know that preachers tend to preach over people's heads academically, right? I know that's happened here in the past, right? And we're talking about things on a very deep spiritual level, right? This is when I'm talked about, when I talk about that fourth degree of love. Loving yourself for God's sake. Finding your true essence. Trying to find who you really are. So that way you can live the existence that you were created to live. You can be the person that you were created to be. Recognizing who you really are. Because once I recognize who I really am, I can realize that there's no distinction between me and you. So what would be the point of me treating you differently than I treat myself if there's no distinction between you and I? If I recognize that Christ is in me, and I am the image of Christ, so in a sense, I am Christ. I'm not saying we're gods. That's not what I'm talking about here, right? Please don't quote that, right? But if I am that image, if I am Christ, and you are Christ, how dare I treat you any differently than I treat anybody else? So this is where God begins to be glorified. God begins to gain. God begins to have more growth. The kingdom begins to grow, which means the nations begin to die. The nations are of Satan. Satan is the prince of the power of the world. Satan has rule and dominion over all the nations of the world. Biblical fact. Takes Jesus up upon the mountain. Shows Jesus all the nations in one moment of time. He shows them every nation that would ever exist. And he says, I will give them all to you if you bow down and worship me. And Jesus says, look, I'm going to get them all anyway. And I don't have to bow down and worship you. Because in the end, my Father's plan is going to win out. My Father's plan wins when the kingdom begins to expand and nations begin to fall. And this happens when we begin to live out of our true selves, when we begin able to look inward and we find him. And then after we find him inward, then he begins to live outward of us. And it's the recognition that he's in me, he is in you. There is no distinction. There's no distinction between what language we speak. There is no distinction between how we practice our worship. There is no distinction between where we live. There is no distinction between what side of the road we're on. There's no distinction between what color we are. There's no distinctions inside of the new self. This is what I'm talking about when I started the year. It says, then Jesus said to his disciples, if anyone wishes to come after me, he must deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. Right? And so, once again, first I sing, okay, then I must stop doing what I'm doing, and I need to pick up a cross, and I need to go sacrifice myself and die on a cross, just like Jesus did. Right? The literal interpretation of that scripture, first I sing, literally means I need to go get a cross, nail myself to the cross, and die. Right? So, maybe it's not literal. So, second I sing is a little bit more of a metaphorical. Right? What do I need to do? I need to deny what's in my own interest, I need to deny what's best for me. I need to pick up an instrument of my suffering, and I need to go out into the world and help them. Just like Jesus did. Jesus went out into the world and he worked with the addicts, he worked with the drunks, he worked with the prostitutes. He was in the world. And if we want to be like Jesus, we need to pick up our instrument of our suffering and we need to go where he went. Second I sing. Third I sing is a little more mystical. This is what we talk about the contemplative way. Talking about understanding something on a deeper level of consciousness. I must deny myself. I must deny my false self. I need to pick up my instrument of suffering and I need to follow him. Where did he go? He went in me. Right? He says to his disciples in John 17, paraphrasing, he says, it is better for me to be in you spiritually than to be with you physically. Jesus leaves. Well, he dies, he's buried, he resurrects, he's with them, right, after the resurrection, and then he leaves. Where does he go? He goes in them. So if I want to find out who I really am, if I want to go after him, I need to pick up my cross. Well, deny myself first. Pick up my cross and then go in after him. Go in me after him. This once again, and it's not saying that the other, well, nailing yourself to the cross and dying is wrong. Don't do that. Okay? But the second eye, that's a good theology. That's good doctrine. Denying ourselves, picking up our cross, and going out into the world. But once again, there's also another level. The narrow way that few people find. And that's my objective. I want to go as deep with God as I can possibly go. I want as much as I can possibly get. I want to know who I am. Friday afternoon, once again, I got to sit in on a class with Professor Alan. You guys met Alan Colt. He wasn't able to be in class on Friday. He sent me an email and said, hey, is there any way you can sit in for me in my class? Absolutely. I get to sit with 27, 18 to 22-year-olds and talk about Richard Rohr for an hour. I'm in. Right? And I ask these kids, I said, who are you? Well, I'm a biology major. Okay, what happens when you graduate and you're not a biology major anymore? I don't know. Well, who are you? Well, I'm a football player. Well, what happens when you graduate? Because chances are, you're a football player, Baldwin Wallace, that's as far as you're playing football. I'm just putting it out there, right? Chances you going to the NFL are pretty slim. So what are you going to do when you graduate and you're not a football player anymore? I don't know. Well, who are you? I'm a Phi Beta Kappa, I don't know what it was. Or some Greek letter, some sorority. Okay, well, I mean, I'll always be. Once you're in, you're always in. Oh, okay, fine. I'll let you have that one. All right, I'm not here to destroy your world, but go ahead and have that one for now, right? But getting them thinking, because these are the important questions, and these are the questions that plague us. So much of our pain and addictions, whatever, comes out of not knowing who I am. And if the who I am I've been told is, really bad, where there's an abuse or some sort of neglect, oftentimes the not knowing who I am manifests in some sort of really painful addiction. Some of us might not have had the abuse, but we still struggle. We're still plagued by not knowing who I am, not knowing why I'm here. And we spend so much of our life lying. We spend so much of our life investing in the false self. And we never take the time to take the journey inward, to go where Jesus is. Because he's in me, the hope of glory. He's in you. And how do I know that? The Bible, that's the book for me. It told me so. It says that he is in all. It says that all are in him. That outside of him there is no life, there is no movement, there is no existence. And if I'm in him, I'm a new creature with a new destiny. That's not just destined to live my life, go to work, come home, and eventually die one day. It's a new life. It's a destiny of understanding who I am. And a lot of people, we talk about these processes of construction and deconstruction and reconstruction. If you're any type of spiritual stuff, all these podcasts are all about deconstruction, and all they talk about is what they're not and what they don't believe in. And then you have these, the preachers I was talking about earlier, all they want to do is construct things, right? And I had a construction, and it was great. It was glorious. And I had a deconstruction that was extremely painful and stripped away my identity, stripped away everything that I believed in, and it was extremely painful and hurtful and lonely and beautiful. But I don't want to stay there. I want to begin to be reconstructed. The problem is that the first time when I was constructed by people. People told me what to believe, what to think, how to preach, how to dress, what is truth, what is not truth, what these passages mean, all means some, all that kind of stuff. I want God to put me back together. I want God to reconstruct my identity. When I look in the mirror, I want to see what He sees. I want to be my true self. And then ultimately, once again, please, I'm saying this because this is what I need to do, right? I talk about this, Ryan points this out all the time. When I preach, I'm preaching what I need to hear. I'm on a journey. And hopefully you're on the journey too. That's why you're here. These are the things that I need to hear. This is where I'm trying to go. I just want anybody who wants to go with me, come on. There's more than enough room in this car for all of us. I'm not content coming up every Sunday and just saying lies. I'm not content just living in a false self. I want everything God has in store for me. I want you to have everything God has in store for you. And there's so much more when we strip out all of the lies. We undo all of the hurts and all of the pains. And we put on the new flesh. We become the new creature. And we begin to live out His image, the true knowledge in which we're being renewed. If anybody can come up with a solution as to what it means when it says Christ is all, I'm all ears. Because I'm stuck on that one. I have a hard time picturing myself as Christ, but that's because I have a hard time picturing a lot of the things that I've done that He would never do. But Christ is all? I don't know what that means. But I know I'm His image. I know He's in me, and I'm in Him. And I'm excited to be on a journey with Him. I'm excited to understand who I am and why I'm here.